Have you ever had a near-death experience? Or perhaps someone you know may have had a near-death experience? Well, if so, we would love to hear your story and have you as a guest on our podcast. For more information, visit NDE.world. Again, that's NDE.world. We would love to hear your story.
Welcome to the NDE World Podcast, where we explore the magical, mystical, and spiritual world of near-death experiences. And now, Ashton Lewis and Daphne Lynn.
Welcome back to the NDE World Podcast. I am your host, Ashton Lewis, and this is my lovely hostess, Miss Daphne Lynn. Hello, Daphne. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Glad to be back in the studio. In fact, this is my home, and my actual home is my second home. So I spend more time in the studio.
Yeah.
Well, the beauty of it is my studio is in my home, so I get the best of both worlds. It just depends on what part of the house I'm at. I spend most of my time in the studio.
I know where to go find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So welcome, everybody, to the NDE World Podcast.
How you doing?
Yeah, how y'all doing? If you're new to the show, welcome. And those of you who are returning, welcome back.
Welcome back, man.
Welcome
Good to hear from
back.
you. See you.
Remember, welcome back,
Carter. Yeah.
Well, we need to be careful because we're going to be giving our age away. We start talking about stuff
We can't
like
help but do that.
Welcome Back, Cotter, and Gilligan's Island, and Andy Griffith or something. And they got people's going to be listening like, what?
What is him?
But I'm guessing probably most people who are listening to this kind of stuff are probably familiar with a lot of those.
Maybe some youngsters out there.
Yeah,
The
but I'm
Gen
sure there's
X.
people who's heard of those kind of shows.
Yeah.
So if you are new, just to give you a little rundown on what we do, we actually do quite a few things here. Just a quick tip there: if you don't have the time to hang around too much right now, go over to the website. We got plenty of information about who we are, what we do over there. The website is actually NDE.world. So if you get a chance, go over there to NDE.world, and it has more information on who we are, what we do, and the podcast and things like that. So feel free to go check them out. But what we do, we take these near-death experiences and different type of phenomena and things like that. But more particularly right now on today's show, we do what's called the review. And the near-death experience review is where we take these actual real near-death experiences and we will actually break it down into the elements and look for those spiritual gems in each experience that we can take from the other side and bring it over and share it with people on this side and also apply it in our own lives to better our lives.
Recap of everything, yeah, just to kind of help with bringing it to your knowledge. I mean, you may have caught different points throughout it. We'll bring out those points and elaborate on them, just from as many as we have listened to, and to help the listener grow.
Absolutely, and to go with that thought.
And I grow from it. I mean, I say the listener, but I learn from these. I love it. Yes.
You want to grow. Yeah, if you're growing, that's a good thing.
Be the flower.
Absolutely.
Or the tree.
Yes. So be it all, because you all are.
That's right. We're
you
learning
are
that
all.
we're all connected.
True.
Yeah.
So and we do reviews and interviews and really just break down different elements, say for example, of the near-death experience. And when you start really getting into the near-death experience, you notice that they all are pretty much the foundation, the structure is there pretty much across the board. Okay. However, each person has that experience brought to them in a different way, in a way that they can relate to. In their mind, their body, their spirit, their experiences, okay? So, but there are a lot of across-the-board elements of the actual near-death experience, and we've covered those elements in previous episodes, and I'm sure we're going to be bringing them out in future episodes as well. So, but when you really start looking into it, you'll notice that they do exist. And what we do is we go into these near-death experiences and we bring those to the listener's attention. Okay, like this part was, let's say, for example, the life review. And this part was, telepathically talking to their, family, or, it's just every part of that near-death experience across the board is pretty much the same. However, it's symbols.
The commonalities.
Yes, it's there. However, it's symbols and the way it's delivered, it does vary for each individual. So why don't we go ahead and get our first clip of the day going and see what kind of nuggets we can find and share that with the listeners. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Good
Let's do it.
All right. Well, I am ready, so let's get things rolling.
This happened to me back in 2003, and I still remember this as vividly as the day it happened. On the night in question, I went to bed, it being like any other ordinary night. I remember waking up, as it were, only to find myself in complete darkness, which I call the void. This was no dream because I just knew it was real. My senses worked perfectly and I had complete clarity of thought. It was more real than my sitting here and typing this. The feeling I had was of complete contentedness and an overwhelming peace. I tried to peer through the darkness, but no matter how much I strained to look in any direction, it was completely impenetrable. After I gave up trying to see something, I just stared around in wonder. Then a thought popped into my head, oh, I must be dead. Oh well. I was rather nonchalant about it. I sat there for between moments and minutes, I really couldn't tell. Time didn't seem to exist. All was silent and I was actually quite content to sit there forever. I was very curious about my new situation and thought nothing odd about being there. I had no sense of even having a body, I just was. There was no temperature, no sound, and no nothing. I couldn't move even if I wanted to. I didn't know how, and even if I did, there was nowhere to go. After a few moments of this, I thought to myself, where's God in all this? At the very moment I thought that, a pinprick of bright, golden light suddenly appeared on my right side, far off in the distance. At first I wasn't sure what I was seeing, then the light vanished after a split second and suddenly reappeared. This time, it was a tiny bit closer. It kept doing this, vanishing and getting closer and closer with each appearance. Each time it did this, there was a strange sound, like a far-off thunderclap. Only it wasn't thunder, I can't really describe it. Right after the first 2 or 3 pulses, the thought came to mind, ooh, that must be the tunnel. God is at the end of that, I have to concentrate on it or I might be stuck here forever. So I intently concentrated. I also had the odd thought, don't think of anything bad. I was worried that I would slip up and do that in front of him. Now that I've thought about it, it was kind of silly for me to say that to myself since he knows everything already. Once the light engulfed me completely, I flew through the tunnel. It was quite fast at first, then I wondered if I could slow it down. So I thought, slower, then faster. As I thought this, it happened. As an aside, the walls of the tunnel were streaked with blue rays when I would look at it. Mostly, I was looking up, if you can call it that. When I looked up, it looked like I was inside a pitch-black tornado. The walls twisted around themselves as I moved through it until I saw a super bright pinprick of light appear at the end. This kept getting brighter and brighter until I finally reached the top of it, the tunnel. I recall stopping at the top of the tunnel and floating towards an open opening or portal. A strange feeling came over me that told me that I had arrived. Behind me was the top of the tunnel. In front of me was a demarcation point consisting of a bright blue sky with swirling white clouds around it. In the very center, I saw a massive ball of light of indescribable brightness. I knew immediately this was God. Although I'm using words like in front and behind, they are really meaningless as my vision had expanded to 360 degrees. I would look behind me to focus on the mouth of the tunnel, which was swirling and darker than even the blackness surrounding it. I was acutely aware of that, however I wasn't actually turning my head to look at this since I didn't have a head, much less a body. I had a simultaneous view of all angles. I was also more aware of myself than when I was in the void. I now perceived myself as a puffball of energy, although I was completely formless. I felt completely drawn to him. I felt such longing to be with him that I wanted to merge immediately. This time I could move with a mere effort of will. Wherever I wanted to go, I would instantly be there. The problem was that when I tried to approach God, I was immediately blocked by an unseen force. I can't even describe the way I was stopped. I didn't bump into any force, wall, or anything. I would just be firmly, but gently halted right where the beginning of the blue sky started. I was neither disappointed nor angry, just intensely curious. After trying to get through the barrier twice more and failing, I noticed the very tall silhouette of a man entering my field of vision from my right side and taking a place between God and myself. He was unmistakably Jesus. With later reflection, I wonder if it was either my guide or God presenting that form to me to give me something with a human aspect to grasp onto that I would be comfortable with. I was reared with a Catholic background, so this makes sense to me. He had no features, but was filled with an amazing deep blue radiance. It was a very captivating sight, but I still wanted merge with the light. I even remember being slightly put off that he was blocking my vision of the light and thinking that if he would just move over a bit, then I could see the brightness again. He apparently heard me, because he moved over just enough to give me a quick glimpse. Then he moved back again. I tried 4 more times to zoom directly through him and directly into the blue sky. The same barrier blocked me at every attempt. There was no way I was going to be allowed to pass. I can only assume it wasn't my time. I finally gave up and backed off enough to sit there and have a staring contest with him, with neither of us addressing the other. The only thought that kept coming into my mind was, I wonder why he's not saying anything. I just sat there waiting for him to say something. It never happened. Regardless of this, I was still overwhelmed with peace and super curious as to everything going on. I never felt any infinite love nor knowledge being transferred to me in any way. I guess that wasn't on the menu. After about a minute of this staring contest, I found myself backing away from the light and towards the top of the tunnel. I tried to stay, but it was clear that I was being gently directed back towards the tunnel, whether I liked it or not. Before I realized it, I was rocketing back down the tunnel at the same speed as before. The light grew smaller and smaller until only a crack of it remained. I tried to keep it in my field of vision, but it vanished after that. After I reached the bottom of the tunnel, I ended up being dumped into a normal, earthly dream. After I woke up, I found the aspects of my regular dream to be fading quickly as I would expect. My journey to God, on the other hand, left me with complete recollection. There is not one detail that I cannot remember even to this day. After thinking about it, I assume I was in the void for the purpose of giving me the choice to either ask for God, or to return to the world. It occurs to me now that whichever scenario I picked would have been honored.
And we are back. Very interesting.
Yeah, his was more of a dream vision
Almost
than
like a
an
lucid
OBE
dream.
or
Yeah. But he was experiencing certain phenomena within that experience too.
which is pretty common. You don't necessarily have to experience some kind of horrific something happening to you to experience an NDE or vision.
That's right.
Yeah.
It can just happen.
Or OBE, for that matter.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are common elements with the actual near-death experience phenomenon, like, for example, peace. You know, once he had the OBE, that peace, but there's also that complete darkness. You know, we hear that a lot.
The tunnel and the light.
The tunnel, the light. You know, time didn't exist. There was a peace there. Mm-hmm. And he had this thought that he says, "Oh, I must be dead."
Yeah, he woke up in darkness.
Yeah.
Oh, I must be dead. Oh, well.
But he realized he just was, you know, he just was just there,
right.
just that pure consciousness, you know.
Yeah, no sense of the body. He said he just was.
Yeah, no temperature, sound, nothing.
Yeah, and that's something that we all need to take time to do, is just take time and do a quick meditation. It don't have to be a 30 or hour, you know, do like a 2 to 3, 5 minute,
Whatever.
just
Get into
to
the habit,
get
for sure.
into the moment of just being and let everything else go. And
Quieten that mind.
you time. I call it you time. I need some me time, daggum.
Yeah.
But yeah, do some meditations.
And do
you'd
it
be surprised.
regularly. Make it a habit. If you can only do a minute a day, start off with a minute.
Yeah.
Work up to 5 minutes a day, but do it every day at a certain time when it's going to be best for you. No distractions. You don't have a lot of activity going on. Maybe when the families are kind of settled in for the evening and maybe going to bed, that's a good time. Or get up first thing in the morning when it's just your time. And that's my time is early morning. I'm up at 3 o'clock every morning. So that's my quiet time, and it's easier for me to meditate and to
Oh yeah,
to
and
do that.
I can say this in starting meditations, the mind chatter is starting to slow down, and I can do it a little longer at each
That's right.
at each setting. And I'm going to share this experience with you,
Sure.
with the listener as well. But very recently, in one of my meditations, one of my niece's image popped in my forefront of my vision, and then I audibly heard her name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to reach out to her. I haven't talked to her in a long time. So I reached out to her, and
But the next day was
the
it, or-
next day, yeah, and it was that spirit nudge, the God winks, whatever you want to call it. Literally, we had the best conversation. I mean, she had questions pertaining to some of the topics that we're discussing on this channel. So it was so wonderful of a conversation. That little nudge, just meditating. Get those clear images in there and act on them. Don't just take it, oh, okay, well, what's that mean? Reach out, put your thoughts into action.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because it was a beautiful day for me. I mean, most every day is beautiful, but the meditation, just be. And that's what he said. He just was.
Yeah.
So.
And to keep it going, so he's in this darkness.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned about thought. So he thought, first he must have been dead, okay? But one of his first thoughts, well, okay, now where's God? And as soon as he had that thought, okay, keep this in mind, because I hear this a lot. It's like,
Instantaneous.
when you acknowledge that, that, okay, where's God at? Where's that life? Where's that source or whatever? Your thoughts, it's like it manifests instantly.
Everything is state of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as soon as he asked that question, where's God, then what happens?
Pinprick of light.
Yep, appears.
Yep.
And then you, of course, it said it had like a thunder sound with it as well. But
Yeah, it was like disappearing and reappearing, and each time it did that, it was coming closer.
absolutely. And then he said he
Yeah.
thought about well, this must be the light and the tunnel and things like that. And then and when he thought the tunnel, did he not have it was like a tunnel? Then he started like going through the tunnel. He
Yeah,
said.
he said he had to start really concentrating on God and that, because he didn't want to get stuck in the tunnel.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he also acknowledged, he said, well, don't think of bad. I don't want to think of anything bad. I don't want to get stuck here. So I need to
Yeah.
try to think of something good. So he acknowledged that. I thought that was pretty cool in its own way, that he
Right.
acknowledged that, hey, I am thinking this. I could be creating this. This is real. Or if it isn't, something's happening. I need to think of something good. So he thought of that.
When he was going through the tunnel, he did mention that he thought he would like to slow down a little bit. So he started controlling his speed through the tunnel, and literally he's like speeding through it, and thought, he would like to slow down a little bit because his eyes was catching glimpses of the tunnel, and it was like blue rays within it. So he
Like a
started
tornado.
so he started controlling the speed with his thought.
Just thought alone made him go
Yes.
faster and slower, and it happened that way. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he popped out at the end, and guess what? Bright blue sky.
Said he floated, right? Mm-hmm. And there was a blue sky, and he noticed this ball of brightness that he kept trying to get to in the middle of it. He said he just knew that was what
That
what
he
he
knew
called
that
God.
was God.
Yeah.
And what?
360 vision.
Yes, sir. It's in every account. I mean, for those that realize it and comment on it, but yes, it is 360 vision, that complete vision.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting here. He said that he had no head,
Nobody.
no body. He could see at all angles. But he used the the description of a puffball
Of energy.
of formless energy. A puffball of formless energy.
Yeah, we hear so many of these stories that talk about the ball of energy, that everything's energy. And this is just one of those accounts that he comes back saying that it's a puffball of energy. Some describe it as a big, shiny ball of energy, some a form of a human, but energy.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Different descriptions
Human form,
of energy.
Yeah, because it is energy, then it can manifest into anything.
Yes.
The beauty of energy. So now, as he's in the situation here, he's wanting to go to that light, that what he calls God, or that thing in the center. And he says every time he kept trying to go towards it, he kept like running into some kind of force field or getting blocked some kind of way. He couldn't get any farther. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, he tried to go around this blockage so many times to get back to see that God energy, and he was stopped every single time. And he said it wasn't forceful, but he just felt that solid stop. It was just there to prevent him from going any farther. But then he started seeing a tall silhouette
Of a man.
between him and that inner God energy.
Yeah.
So,
And who did he identify it as? And then what was his comment after that? I think we need to focus on that too.
Exactly.
Because that's a nugget. In fact, let me highlight that while you comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was beauty in that, because he that silhouette transformed to
Jesus,
the deity of Jesus. So, but almost instantly he also realized, hey, that's his God giving him something to relate to in human terms.
Yeah, he said God.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So and we see that so many times, and that's one of the things we talk about and share here on this podcast, is that God will, or what we call God, or the source of the all,
energy.
that energy, will appear to you in a way that it needs to get to you, that you would understand and you would comprehend. Okay. Sometimes it appears as Jesus. Sometimes it appears as Vishnu, or Krishna, or Lao Tzu, or Buddha.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes even appears as certain entities or certain beings. It doesn't have to be somebody that you're familiar with.
A religious figure
that we're familiar with here on Earth. So that's the point. It was cool because, and he said he realized to him, he said, I realized that was Jesus, or what God was trying to
his guide
to appear as to me, so I would understand it.
Yeah, so he could relate to it as a human.
And I like that he said that. But also what I like, it says no feature, so that way if it didn't have any feature, then you really don't know who it is. But the blue radiance, that blue light, remember we talked about the blue light? Did you catch that?
Blue light a lot. And I'm going to say this, because when he was talking about this, the deep blue radiance, it instantly, my mind goes to the different movies we've seen with the Jesus character being portrayed with the radiant blue eyes. For some reason, that popped in my mind, and it's like, it's just that silhouette of that energy, that blue light that's mentioned in so many different ones. It's not just all bright white, but that blue as well.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say so much the eyes, because there's literally thousands of Jesus' images you can go to right now, and he's got black eyes, he's got brown eyes, he's got blue eyes now.
But I'm talking about in the experiences that I've heard where they see, like, I'm going to give the example of the first one that really comes to my mind is in the movie Heaven is Real. Remember the painting of the Jesus with blue eyes? That's what popped in my mind is that, and then the little boy at the end of the movie, that's him. Remember in the eyes. So that blue radiant energy, I think, is what's being projected through that.
Well,
but in a form that children can understand and comprehend.
I don't really know. It definitely gets you thinking. That's a good comment, good thought there. From what I do understand, that Krishna, when you see the blue, he's always a blue.
Yeah, the Indian gods are blue.
Not all, but Krishna is blue. And, but lots of them are. Lots of other ones are, but they're all different kind of colors and things. But Krishna is the main one that I'm thinking of. but he's blue, and from what I understand, and so disclaimer, I do not know this, so no bashing going here. So guys, I'm only making a quote, but I heard that the reason why he was blue is because the energy, he had that blue aura, so the blue, and that blue is a high spiritual color,
Right,
even when
yeah.
you think about the chakra system, so blue represents a highly
Blue
evolved
is in-
spiritual individual.
Yeah.
So they said that's why he was always blue, because he had that spirit about him, like Jesus or
Right.
one of them, But I don't know if there's anything to that, guy. So yeah, just look into it and see. But there's definitely something about that blue energy, the blue light, But you hear blue, you hear white, and you also hear gold.
Yeah.
I hear, that God appears as gold, or Jesus appears as gold. So it really depends on that person and, their experience, how that energy needs to appear to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So he realized he couldn't merge with this light. He couldn't pass. So after trying, every time he tried, and then this figure would get in the way, but he said eventually he just gave up, And because it became a staring contest, he was eye to eye with Jesus, or the being he thought was Jesus, but nobody was talking. I mean, think about that. You can't get the guy. You got somebody blocking you, and
Hey, and he's wanting to look around and see the God energy around.
everywhere he goes, he gets
And
blocked.
telepathy. He thought, I wish he would just move so I could just see him again.
Yeah.
And that silhouette moved so that he could see again, and then he blocked him
Yeah.
again. So.
Yeah, so it's cute in its own way, but it's definitely gets you thinking.
Yes, most
So
definitely.
the staring contest, nobody was talking. It seemed like he was waiting for him to talk, but nobody talked, But he said there was still this peace,
Super curious.
really, really peaceful, but he didn't feel any love. He said there was no love. Oh, not that he
No
didn't feel
sense
any
of
love,
love.
but he didn't get that supercharged, unconditional love like a lot of people talk about. I think that's what he was saying.
And I'm gonna.
Or the knowledge transfer either as well.
And I'm wondering if that is because this was not an actual
NDE.
NDE. I mean, this is more of a vision, so that
Almost a lucid dream.
Right, yeah. So when you have the NDEs, they do feel that overwhelming love. They do have that all knowledge. So in this, that could be because it was
That does
a
make
vision.
sense, yeah,
that he
yeah.
didn't have those senses.
Yeah, good. That's a good point. You never know. Yeah, good
Yeah, we
point.
just
good
don't
point. And he also, like I'd mentioned, he didn't get that knowledge transfer, so he didn't really get to connect to the source. So if you think about this, when people on the other side, it says when they connect to that source, bam, then they get all this knowledge, all knowing, this charge of, you know what I'm saying? They know everything. Everything makes sense and all that. This particular experience, whatever you want to call it, he couldn't get to light. He couldn't get to the source. So maybe because he couldn't get into source and really bask in that, then he couldn't really tie into that all knowledge, all that all knowing. Maybe that's another reason why he didn't experience it, because he couldn't really get all the way to source because he kept getting blocked. Just food for thought, We don't try to read into any of these things. We're just, throwing out ideas. So, okay, so now guess what? Back towards the tunnel. And I like this part here. It said that he was dumped into his earthly dreams.
Right, and those dreams began fading very quickly, but he had complete recollection of his, what he called, journey to God.
Yeah, the details. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So did this not start off with him in bed, laying down, going to sleep? Mm-hmm. Or did it? I can't recall.
He was,
I'm trying to-
he was sleeping.
Well, then that would make sense. All this was just pretty much a dream,
A vision.
But as not the dream state where you visit God, where you visit the spirit world.
Where the spirit reconnects, yeah.
Absolutely. Most people that know this, it's a secret, but the way you communicate with God is typically in your dream state. When you are either sleeping, unless you can, bring yourself to a meditative state of a sleep type state. You get down to that delta
Because
state
the
or
spirit,
theta.
the soul is always in connection, always alive, always active. But our little human bodies have to have rest. Our little batteries run down.
That's the only thing.
So that spirit is still aware of the higher self, that God source, the other souls around.
That's actually really a subject for a whole different podcast when you start getting into, the dreams and, the dream world and the spirit world and contacting the creator. Yeah. It happens at nighttime. So we'll talk about that. Yeah. The dream state. We'll get more into that on a different podcast.
Sure.
Okie dokie. Well, with that thought in mind, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much for listening today. Again, go to the NDE website, and that address is nde.world, and check out what we do. Feel free to contact us, and we'd love to hear from you. And
yes, please reach out. I mean, we would love to hear your mystical, supernatural, NDE, OBEs, your alien stories. I mean, just whatever. We are open to sit down with you or phone recording you. We would love to hear your stories.
Yes.
Yeah, we are actually working on some scheduling for a couple of episodes coming up. So,
yes.
Yeah, please reach out. Let's get the schedule filled up.
Yeah, we'd love to help you guys out, just to share your story. So just get with us, nde.world. And with that thought in mind, we love you guys so much, and may peace be with you all. Until next time.
Y'all let your light shine.
For more information about the NDE World Podcast, visit NDE.world. That's NDWorld.world.